This is Football Night in America, served by Applebee's.
Welcome into the FNIA podcast, served by Applebee's. You know, the great Tony Dungy, the great Rodney Harrison on the other side of the screen. Gentlemen, we start with big news. It seems like every week we're doing this now. It's another wide receiver on the move, and he's moving to the champs and DeAndre Hopkins. So this is going to be his fourth team now. Houston, Arizona, Tennessee, and Kansas City. Rodney, start us off. What's it mean?
Well, I think this is a big win, not only for the Chiefs, but Patrick Mahomes. You get an experienced, proven player who doesn't necessarily have to be the number one receiver. DeAndre Hopkins, he's not the same player that he was 4 or 5 years ago. But Andy Reid's offense is not, it's about creating mismatches and confusion. And Patrick Mahomes, his job is about getting the ball to the playmakers. But this is huge when you get down to the red zone and you want to alleviate some of that double teams off of Travis Kelce. Now you have another veteran with a lot of experience, big hands. He's a big receiver. He knows how to catch contested throws. I think this has been a fantastic pickup, Coach.
I agree with you, Rod. I really don't know why these AFC teams want to help their competitors. You know, if you're Cleveland, you know, what are you doing sending your best receiver to the Buffalo Bills to help them out? If you're Tennessee, I know you want to get draft choices, but send them to the NFC where you're not going to have to play against them, or you're not going to help one of your competitors get to the Super Bowl. Hopkins is going to be a guy who's going to make plays in Andy Reid's offense. I think it's going to be a very, very good move for the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen their guys get banged up. Rashee Rice has the knee. Marquise Brown has the shoulder. Juju Smith-Schuster, this would have been a big moment for him, potentially. He has the hamstring. And even Xavier Worthy took that big hit. And so they were looking at potentially going Cooper Kupp, and ultimately just based on the compensation, and I think how the money would have been divided between the two franchises, Hopkins makes more sense. Do you think Cooper Kupp would have made sense there too to Kansas City? How were you guys thinking about that when it was in the news?
Oh, to me, Cooper Kupp would have been a home run. He's the guy that can run those crossing routes, catch the ball in traffic, run after the catch. But I'm thinking, who is going to give away these kind of guys to the Chiefs? I thought maybe they'd end up picking up Marquez Valdez-Scantling again, somebody that's on the street. But to get a DeAndre Hopkins or a Cooper Kupp when you're 6-0, I don't understand that. I really don't.
And think about the player that you're getting. You're getting a player that was disgruntled. He wasn't happy. He wasn't getting the ball. He was having to play with Will Levis. Now you get a guy who's probably ecstatic, who's dancing, who's singing, feels like he's 25 years old because he has an opportunity to play with a great organization and a tremendous quarterback. And yes, all the attention will be on him, but he still doesn't have to be the number one. He just has to be present.
How long does it take to get acclimated? I mean, he's played in all these different offenses. He's been around forever. How long will it take before he knows what the heck's going on, do you think, Coach?
It'll take a while. They will give him the names of plays, and he'll know where to line up and what to do. But that chemistry of, okay, when I get this coverage and the guy's here, Patrick's going to put the ball here or he's going to put it over the top. And Patrick's going to have to learn him too. And as we've seen with DeAndre, you can throw him the ball when he's covered. He doesn't have to be open. And that takes a little while for a quarterback to learn.
But you also think about just his presence, especially in the red zone, Coach. When you're a defense and you have to, okay, are we going to single DeAndre Hopkins against our young corner? Or are we going to double team him? Now, guess what? You forget about Travis Kelce. You forget about all those other trick plays that Andy Reid does. So just his presence alone will take attention away from some of those other players and really just open up this offense even more.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why we've seen this movement, though, is these injuries. So I want to show you guys the Week 7 injuries. As we come through Week 7, here's what's going on. Watson out for the season with the Achilles. Brandon Ayuk, the ACL, MCL. We'll see San Francisco this week, and they're banged up at receiver. DK Metcalf. We saw Aiden O'Connell, Huntley, and then probably maybe the team that's hit the hardest, especially at one position group, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, both there in Tampa. Tampa was looking so good, Coach, and now all of a sudden your hometown Buccaneers, they take 2 huge hits at that position.
They really were, and it was a really tough thing, Jack. I was at the game, and I'm watching, and Mike Evans is in the end zone, with the ball in his hands, and you're thinking they're going to take a 2-score lead, and he goes down, lets the ball go, reaches for his hamstring, and you say, wow, that's a big one. And then Chris Godwin at the end of the game, and that's got all the Buccaneer fans just up in arms now. Why was Chris Godwin in at the end of a game that they couldn't really win? Well, I was telling our Mike Florio, a Monday night game many, many years ago, I was on the opposite sideline. We were down 3 touchdowns with 4 minutes to go. And I told Tom Moore, my offensive assistant, I said, maybe we ought to take the first group out. This game probably over. And Tom Moore told me, Tony, I wouldn't do that. I listened to him, and I left my guys in. We got 3 touchdowns in 4 minutes and won the game in overtime. Well, Tom Moore is the senior advisor right now to Todd Bowles. And I'm sure Todd Bowles said, well, what do you think? And Tom said, hey, let's play this one out. And you know, guys want to be in there. Godwin wanted to be in there. It's unfortunate. But that really has devastated the Buccaneers in their passing game right now.
Yeah, the one thing you think about, too, is you guys had Peyton Manning, and no disrespect to Baker Mayfield, but he's not Peyton Manning. Okay. And Mike Evans, when I saw Mike earlier in the game, Coach, even just kind of jogging around, he didn't look right. And I just felt like they could have withstood one more week of giving him rest, because now this week, it would have been this week he plays against a division foe in Atlanta Falcons. So hold him. I guess the more important game was the Atlanta game as opposed to to the Monday night game. And when I saw Mike Evans, I just said he shouldn't be in the game. He doesn't look right. When the ball hits Mike in the hands, he doesn't drop anything. And when he dropped that pass, I said, it wouldn't surprise me if he goes on IR, because that doesn't look like a week or 2 hamstring. That looks like that hamstring popped.
And you're right. That's always tough to deal with, and to know you're a competitor. You want to be out there and help your team. We were in Pittsburgh when they had Dallas 3 weeks ago, and I was talking to Alex Highsmith, and he said, I'm close. I'm almost ready. And Russell Wilson was the same way, dealing with the calf injury. And I said, well, we see you guys next week. Well, they'd like to. I know they wanted to be in there, but the Steelers said, no, let's let them get perfectly healthy. And then we saw Russell Wilson and Alex Highsmith probably waiting longer than they wanted to, but they were ready to go, and they made it through that first time back just fine.
And I'll just tell you guys, I feel absolutely terrible for Chris Godwin. I mean, this is a kid that does everything that you ask him to do. He's tough. He's physical. He does everything in that slot for his team. He's unselfish. He never complains. He's just a consummate pro. And then he comes off an ACL last year. He gets hurt again this year. I feel really bad for this kid, because he's just not just a really good football player, but just a special person. I feel bad for him. So I'm definitely going to be praying for him.
Yeah, I think all of us will. I do wonder if the Bucs are in a spot now where they have to go make one of these moves. Do they have to go figure out if there's a receiver out there? That's 2 really key guys for them. And I don't know that either of them, the returns are imminent. I don't think it's going to be soon for either guy. It may be, next year for Godwin, for all we know. But for Evans, like you said, Rod, this may be a while now.
Yeah, and they'll have to look at that, and especially with Chris Godwin. What is this injury? How long is he going to be out? And if it is going to be long-term, they might have to make a move. Reminds me of another story, though. Our Super Bowl year in Indianapolis, Dallas Clark were playing the Philadelphia Eagles, and he goes down, and we're walking off the field, and the doctor says, it looks like an ACL. I'm sorry to tell you that. Well, the next day, Monday, we were going to put him on IR at 4 o'clock. At 3:55, the doc called and said, don't put him on IR. It's not fully torn. He works hard to come back. He came back for the last regular season game and had a monster playoff for us. So I think you got to wait and see what's happening with Chris, and hopefully he can get that same type of news that he can be back.
Hey, Coach, and if I'm the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I would look at Cooper Kupp. I mean, this is a guy that can come in that slot. He can develop that connection with Baker Mayfield, and he could be a difference maker right away. I mean, this guy has tons of experience. He caught a lot of passes, and guys in that locker room respect Cooper Kupp, but they have to be aggressive. Transitioning, they have to be aggressive going to get another playmaker, because they need it.
They need it. Amen.
Yeah. So Deshaun Watson officially out for the year with that Achilles tear. if you're Tampa, are you thinking Jameis Winston at this point in the game, or what do you
Cleveland, you
think
mean?
right now? If you're Cleveland, what are you thinking?
I would go to Jameis if you and they're sitting there and probably saying, "Hey, we're probably not going to make the playoffs." But as we talked about last week on our podcast, when you're trying to rank the best teams and the worst teams, there's room to get going and get in the playoffs. So I wouldn't tank the season right now. I'd play Jameis and see if we can get on a little winning streak.
I said the same thing. I was surprised they put in Dorian Yates as opposed to Jamison in there when Deshaun got hurt. I felt like Jamison, I mean, he's an experienced guy. He could give him a little bit more in that moment, especially leadership-wise, because he's such an experienced veteran.
Yeah. All right, let's get to who is eating good in the neighborhood. That is presented by Applebee's. And who's eating good? The Washington Commanders. And they did it without Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels was banged up. He's dealing with the rib. Mariota comes in. I know it's just Carolina, but Rod, he lit them up. 18 of 23, 205, and a couple touchdowns. It hasn't mattered. Whoever Washington puts in so far, they've been tearing it up.
Yeah, and I just think it speaks to the stability of the organization. And you start to look at some of the players that they brought in, leadership-wise. Bobby Wagner's a 10-time All-Pro. Zach Ertz was a good player for a long time. Austin Eckler, those guys really set the tone for the locker room. They're not huge names or anything like that. I mean, Bobby Wagner he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but those other guys are just really good, steady players. And you need those type of guys in your locker room. And Coach, I think Cliff Kingsbury, my former teammate, I think he's done a great job of developing Jaden McDaniels and also, taking this offense to the next level.
I agree with you. You have to give Kingsbury props. What he did with Daniels as a rookie, coming in and playing that way, and then, okay, he goes down. And now Marcus Mariota comes in and has the same type of game. So he can call a game for Jaden Daniels and put up these type of numbers, but then he calls a game, what's Mariota comfortable with, and he plays great. So they've got it going on offense. Their defense is playing aggressive football. Dan Quinn's done a great job. These guys are eating good, and no one expected them to be in first place in the NFC East right now. And I think they're the best team in the East without question.
Yeah. Yeah. And they just feel like they're going to get better. They got 4 games with 200+ rush yards as well. And it's tied for the team's most in a 5-game span, talking about points, the team's most points in a 5-game span, going all the way back to 1983. So they're scoring points. They got a young quarterback, and they're making it happen. The Baltimore Ravens, the Ravens are looking good. Lamar Jackson's back in the leader in the clubhouse, the favorite position for the MVP. Could he go get another MVP? And he was just lighting it up on Monday Night Football, Coach.
Yeah, I was there in the stands just watching as a fan, and we talked about their identity, and they're running Derrick Henry, and they're pounding it, and they're bringing Justice Hill in and, getting after you. So now you got to just gang up on that running game, and then the play action passes are wide open. Lamar's hitting the guys, throwing the ball like crazy. They're playing lights out offense right now, and they're another team that's eating good right now.
They struggled early this season with their offensive line, because they had 3 new guys, but their offensive line is starting to come together. Your boy, Ronnie Stanley, he looks like he's getting healthier. He's moving. Yeah. He's moving extremely well. And once again, no matter how good you play Derrick Henry, you might stop Derrick Henry 7, 8 straight times, and your defense is pumped up, Coach. We always say this. Eventually, he's going to break a couple, and that's what happens. And when he gets out in the open field, he's big, he's fast, but also Zay Flowers, the toughness of this kid. This kid gets thrown around, he gets hit, and he's a special talent. He just keeps fighting. I love his toughness, Jack.
Yeah. Go ahead, Coach.
They have a variety of weapons. We talk about Derrick Henry, and Flowers is exceptional. But then you look at them, and Bateman has a big game Monday night. And then we were talking about Likely and how good he is, and Rodney loves Likely. Well, now Mark Andrews shows out on Monday night. Yeah. And you just say, wow, man, they've got weapons all over the place.
Yeah. I mean,
and Kolar, the other tight end, they got 3 tight ends.
They do.
They got 3 tight ends. They got 2 really good running backs. Go ahead, Jack.
No, I was just saying they got 3 tight ends, and they got a fullback. Probably the best fullback in the NFL. It's old school. Sorry. So they got 873 yards for Derrick Henry. The next closest is 667 for Jordan Mason. So, Rod, he leads the NFL by 206 rush yards. He's already about to hit 1,000 rush yards talking about Derrick Henry.
And the main thing is just keeping him healthy. And Derrick does a great job of taking care of himself and his body and things like that. But that's the thing. And that's why you can rotate Justice Hill in, because he gives you something a little different. You're still going to get that downhill running. You're going to get some added quickness. But this guy, he's a smaller guy, but he's tough. And that's why I love the Ravens. And that's why every week, Coach and I, we're always screaming, run the football. Because when you run the football, you establish that physicality at the line of scrimmage. Everything else comes from that.
And we can talk about all these skill positions and weapons, and they've got them. But watching from the stands, I counted 6 times when Todd Bowles dialed up a blitz, and they had a free blitzer unblocked on Lamar, and they couldn't get him down. 6 times where he just beat a guy and made something happen, ran away from him, made yards. They couldn't get him. And he's General Lamar right now. They cannot handle him, and they've got it going.
Yeah. Is he the MVP, Rod? Anybody else you want to throw in there? Or is he the MVP to you?
Who's better than Lamar Jackson at this point right now? Everything that he's doing, his leadership, him passing the ball, him running the football, just everything that he brings. I mean, without Lamar Jackson, this team would definitely be in trouble. But I love the 1-2 punch of him and Derrick Henry. They're just going to keep growing in this offense.
How about for you, Coach? Would you go Lamar? Would you go Josh Allen? Is there anybody else you'd throw in that mix of MVP through 7?
Josh Allen is playing great football right now, not turning the ball over. They're winning. Lamar, watching that performance the other night really got me, though. Right now, if I had to vote, he'd get my vote.
Yeah.
It's not close. Put it like that. It's not even close.
It's still only a third of the way through the season, though. Let's be patient.
That's right. That's right. The crazy thing is it probably would be Lamar 1 and Henry would have a chance to be number 2. So you might have, it's almost like, who is it, Kurt Warner and Marshall Faulk? I think we're the last couple to do that, but it's really hard to do that. All right, let's get down to the Green Bay Packers. Rodney, this is a team I know you wanted to talk about. You've been hot on them even since week 1. We were watching them over there in Brazil.
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. And you look at offensively, all the young weapons that they have, and I love their offense. But to me, it's been this defense. Their front 4, and they're healthy. That's the thing. You know, Detroit, they lose Aiden Hutchinson, but you got Kenny Clark playing extremely well. And within that front 7, those linebackers, Edgerrin Cooper, who's one of their top linebackers, he's a young guy. He's starting to get acclimated, starting to play at a high speed. Eric Wilson, he made a bunch of plays. And I like this secondary. They're highly competitive, led by Jair. He's going to talk trash. Xavier McKinney, he's been absolutely outstanding. And I'll tell you another guy, a kid that plays extremely well, does so many multiple things, is Keyshawn Nixon. He does so many things for this secondary. He can tackle, he can cover in the slot. I just like where they're heading on the defensive side of the ball. We know they can put up points. Jordan Love, he's thrown probably a few more interceptions than what we anticipated. But I'm telling you, this defense is starting to turn around.
And to me, that's the quiet part of it. We know these guys are a good team. They were in the playoffs last year. They beat Dallas. And we always talk about their offense and their young receivers. And they've got, a complete group on that offensive side and a great young quarterback. But defensively, what they did to Houston last week, that was really impressive. We've talked about C.J. Stroud and how good he's been and how calm in the pocket and all the weapons he's got. They held him under 100 yards passing, held him to less than 50% completions because they were all over him. Rodney talked about that secondary. I don't think they get enough credit right now for what they're doing. 5-2. Their starting quarterback was out for a couple of games. They're playing good football, and that NFC North race is going to be something.
It is. It really is. You're so right. I mean, Green Bay has 3 straight wins. They beat the Rams, they beat Arizona, they beat Houston. Probably the most impressive of those was Houston, which we just saw. Are the best teams in the NFC right now in the North? I mean, it just looks like all the best teams. Minnesota, Green Bay, and then Detroit. Is there anybody better that you would say in the NFC as a whole than what we're looking at in the North?
And then you have to look at Chicago, too. Chicago is coming on, and they're playing. Caleb Williams is playing better. So those are going to be dogfights. And they may not have the best record because they're going to have to play and battle against each other. But those are 4 good football teams right now.
I agree with you, Coach. Nobody wants to go and play against the NFC North. I mean, before you can mark the Bears as a W. Now you have to really prepare because these guys, they compete, they fight. They got a really competitive defense, and Caleb Williams is starting to get better. But I agree with you, Coach. I love this NFC North. This is going to be fun.
All right, let's get down to some teams who are hovering right around that 500 mark. It's a little game we call Who Are They? Who the heck are these teams? We're going to start with the LA Chargers. They got a new head coach. They lost 2 out of their last 3 after a good start. They lost to the Chiefs. They lost to the Cardinals, Coach. Who are they?
Well, that's what we've got to find out now. Jim Harbaugh comes in, and I was very high on them and think they're going to be great, and they win some games. But you think Harbaugh is going to come in and fix the offense. Well, the games they lost, they scored 10 against the Chiefs, they scored 10 against the Steelers, and only 15 against Arizona. And you got Justin Herbert in that group. You got to put up more than 10 points in these games. I still think they'll be coming, but right now, are they a defensive team? Are they an offensive team? Where are these Chargers, Rod?
Coach, this is where I wanted to ask you because I like the attitude. I think this is a solid team, and they're right where I thought they would be. But Justin Herbert, he's thrown for under 200 yards 4 times. And he wasn't drafted where he was drafted to come in and do that. Do you think like Harbaugh needs to let him go a little bit more or continue to run the football and kind of hold him back?
Well, I know Jim has wanted to preach that, hey, we're going to be physical, we're going to be tough, we need to be able to run the ball in these December and January playoff games. But you've got a great quarterback, you've got to turn him loose. Now, last week he threw for almost 350, and they still only put up 15 points on Arizona. So I don't know what's missing there, just that killer instinct with that offense, but they've got to score more points, and I do think Justin Herbert's the key.
Yeah. All right, let's get down to the Colts. The Colts, they're 4-3. We got them coming up on Sunday Night Football here shortly. They've won 2 in a row. Maybe a big reason why they hopped up into Sunday Night Football. Beat Tennessee, beat Miami. Rod, who are the Colts?
They're a team that can beat really bad teams. All right. I believe. Hey, I look at Anthony Richardson, and I know he's an absolute athletic freak, but he just doesn't look ready to me, Coach. Very inconsistent. I know they're enamored with his athleticism, and I just think this kid would do a lot better if he sat on the sideline, if he watched, if he continued to learn. I think they put him out there. I mean, those are 2 bad teams that you named, but I'm really into the veteran quarterback. I'm not into Anthony Richardson being the starting quarterback right now, Jack.
You know, we had this debate last week when we were getting ready to cover the Steelers, and you got Justin Fields, and then you've got Russell Wilson, and who do you play? Well, they're in the same boat. They've got this young quarterback that can make some fantastic highlight reel plays, and then they've got Joe Flacco sitting there. And if Jonathan Taylor is playing and dominating on the ground, and Joe Flacco now can just pick you apart with the play-action passing game and third down, that's a very effective offense. I know that's not what the Colts want. They want to develop this young guy, but I think if you want to win games and you're talking about trying to get to the playoffs, there's a thought that maybe you put Joe Flacco in there and get that stability that he would bring.
Because then you are really truly worry about one team within the division, right?
Yeah, and that's Houston. You got to figure out a way to beat Houston, and you're going to have to put points on the board, probably throwing the football against them to beat them.
That point right there.
All right, let's go to the Seattle Seahawks. They are now 4-3, but they have lost 3 of their last 4. They just beat Atlanta on Sunday to get themselves back into the win column. Who do you feel like they are, Coach?
Well, that one surprised me. I thought they'd have trouble going back east and winning after, having some tough times, slowing people down and not playing good fundamental football. But they got back to that kind of Seattle style, takeaways, good hard-nosed defense. Got Kenneth Walker going again. And I'll tell you what, Geno Smith has played outstanding ball for them. Now they're going to be missing their big man in DK for a while. And how do they react to that? But Seattle's a good story right now, Rod.
Yeah, they're 4-3, coach, and I still have questions about this defense because you look at how good their head coach was with the Baltimore Ravens last year when he was, their defensive coordinator. I just look, they gave up 42 points against the Lions. They gave up 29 points against the Giants. They gave up 36 points against the 49ers. When you're playing against really good offenses, you're giving up a bunch of points. And just for me, the defense is not there at this point in time. Geno's going to have to continue to play like a madman, like an MVP, because this defense, I don't think this defense is really good.
All right, let's get down to the Cincinnati Bengals. We just saw them on Sunday Night Football against the Giants. They've now won 2 in a row. Maybe not 2 good teams, but the Giants and then at Cleveland. They really hadn't won at Cleveland in the Joe Burrow era. So Burrow never beat Cleveland. Jamar never beat Cleveland. They get it done. Your thoughts on the Bengals right now, Rod, where they sit at 3-4?
I like the Bengals, man, and I don't care what their record is. You always have to keep the Bengals right there. I think they're getting healthier on the defensive line. B.J. Hill, he's been good for them. Now you're starting to see Hubbard. Hendrickson's making a lot of plays. Unfortunately for Geno Stone, the safety, he hurt himself, so that's a big loss for them. But overall, offensively, I like what T. Higgins. He's a great compliment to Jamar Chase. I think Chase Brown, the little running back, I think he gives them a little pop. But I'm excited for the Cincinnati Bengals, coach. A lot of people overlook them, but not me, and their defense is starting to get hot at the right time.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned, though. They started out offensively. They didn't have Chase and T. Higgins and played slow those first couple of games. And then they got those receivers back, and their offense took off. Defense wasn't stopping anybody. Well, the last couple of weeks, they've gotten healthy on defense. Now they're shutting the door, slamming the door. But what's happened to the offense? Sacks, pressure, offense isn't scoring. Offensive line maybe showing up some deficiencies there. When are we going to see the full Cincinnati team? If we see the whole thing, they're as good as anybody, but we haven't seen it yet.
Well, they're going to have a couple of home games coming up. Philly's got a really talented defensive line, so we'll see how they handle that. And then Vegas, if they could get to 5-4 after the 1-4 start, that would be pretty sweet. They came into the year basically with 3 tackles. Orlando Brown, who just got himself a little bit banged up with the knee, is what they're officially calling it. Trent Brown, who they've already lost for a significant period of time. And then Mims, who is the first-round draft pick. How do we feel like Mims is holding up so far? He was the prize pick, and a lot of teams were looking at him. He's a monster body. How's he learning the NFL game so far, do we feel?
Well, he's coming on.
From what I've seen. Okay. Go ahead, Coach.
He's coming on. He's getting better, and some guys take a little time. He's got some people teaching him and mentoring him, and those guys are getting back in the lineup too, so they're going to help him. I think their defense is going to be where it needs to be. I agree with you, though, Jack. I think this is the biggest game of the year for them. If they can get this Philly win and get a win against a team that's good, that's going to do a lot for their confidence and their momentum. If they lose this game and now it's okay, we're back on that downhill slide again. So I want to see what they do this week.
I'll tell you one guy, if I'm blocking one guy with 2 guys all game, it's Jalen Carter. He is something else. When that big boy gets going, you can't stop him, and he's mean. Woo, Coach, he mean. I mean, he played that position like he's Warren Sapp.
Well, interesting thing, I was talking to you guys in the truck. I actually had a conversation with Nick Sirianni, and he asked me about Warren Sapp. He said, I think I've got the same type of guy. How did you get through to him? And I don't know whatever he said to Jalen last week, but he got Jalen Carter going, and they need that. If Jalen plays like that, they're going to be tough to beat.
Yeah. You must have gave him some good advice, Coach. I don't know what that was. You have to share with us later. All right.
I told him to turn the dog loose.
Okay, I like that. The 4-3 Denver Broncos. They've won 2 of their last 3. They beat Vegas and the Saints. They lost to the Chargers in week 6. So, Rodney, the Denver Broncos under Sean Payton, what do you think?
I think they're heading in the right direction. You got to be excited for them. I think they're growing with this young quarterback. I think Sean Payton has done a really good job this year working on his patience and really relying on that defense. They got a good defense. They got some good players on the defensive side of the ball. But I think he's done a good job of trying to reestablish the running game and trying to get to these young players, especially that young quarterback, Coach.
Yeah, I agree. Bo Nix, I love him. He's going to be up and down a little bit. Rookie quarterbacks are, but he's growing every week. to me, that defense, the way they play, Vance Joseph and that unit, they're the ones that are going to have to give them the level, good play all year long. And if they do, they've got a chance to be a playoff team. You look at that AFC, and they're going to be right in there at the end.
Yeah. All right, well, let's shut it down then with two of our favorite hovering around 500 teams. San Francisco, we will be there for Sunday Night Football, and the Dallas Cowboys, who are 3-3 coming off the bye. Jerry Jones has had plenty of media attention around him and some of his comments here. San Francisco, let's start there. Coach, how we feeling?
Well, I did not expect to see this. I didn't think we'd be coming into this game with San Francisco having a losing record. They've got some offensive injuries. We know that. But to me, the disappointment has been their defense. Their defense has not played at that San Francisco championship level that we're used to seeing. And they might have to carry the load here for a couple of weeks until they can figure out what to do on offense. And I expect to see these guys step up and play some good, fundamentally sound, tough, hard-nosed football this week.
I know they're going to run the football and try to establish a line of scrimmage, but they're going to have to pass the ball, Coach. And eventually, I think Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, they're going to have to go out and try to get another wide receiver, another weapon. Kendrick Bourne is a kid that plays for the Patriots. He was always solid with them. He knows Kyle Shanahan. That's always an option. Another guy that just kind of popped up to my head was Cortland Sutton. He's another opportunity. Just they need playmakers. They need bodies, and they're just not healthy right now. The offensive line, they've had some issues at times. Brock Purdy, he seems like he's forcing it. I did not expect the San Francisco 49ers to be 3-4. Coach, you talk about their defense. When you lose Javon Hargrave, you lose a Dre Greenlaw and the impact that he had, the speed and athleticism at the linebacker position. Then you lose a Talanoa Hufanga, who's an all-pro at safety. So you lose three guys at three different levels on your defense. It's going to have a significant impact. And Bosa's still getting double teamed. They have Leonard Floyd, who's a solid player, but he's not great. So, yeah, it's some concerns about this 49ers defense, especially in the secondary for me.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned you think they're going to have to throw to win. And I would say to win it all and get back in the hunt for a Super Bowl, they're going to have to throw it much better. But this week, I don't know if they're going to have to throw it. If I'm Kyle Shanahan, I say hand it off to Jordan 45 times. We're going to pound these Cowboys and see if they can hold up to it. And we're not going to take any chances throwing the ball. We're going to run them into the ground. And I think that's the game plan we're going to see.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and if you're the Dallas,
go ahead, Ron.
If you're the Dallas Cowboys defense, Coach, the most important thing you have to do is you have to stop that run, because if you can slow down that run, they're a different offense when there's a static offense and you know they have to pass. Then you can play inside technique. You can force Brock Purdy to throw the ball to the outside. You can do some different things. But when they have their share of where they can run, they can use the play action pass and all those different bootleg actions, that's when they really have you confused and you don't know what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
Yes, and if you're Mike Zimmer, you have to be locked in on that. Come on, guys. Our front seven has to have a big game. We don't know who of those guys are going to be back. Is Micah Parsons going to be back? Whatever, but it doesn't matter. You better bow up, get your pads on, get your pads low, and stop that running game.
Yeah. I feel like he was one of the bigger coordinator hires in the NFL. You know, all the success that we saw Dan Quinn have there as defensive coordinator that earned him the head coaching spot in Washington, and now the success he's gone on to have. And they bring in Zimmer, who was out of football. He's an older guy. He had a ton of success right here in Cincinnati. Then he was up in Minnesota as the head coach. Then he's out of football. He's an old school mentality, and he comes down there to Dallas. What's the review of him now through 6 games in 7 weeks, Coach?
Well, Mike Zimmer is a good coach, and he's got a great system, but it's new. And it wasn't the system that these guys were used to playing. I knew there was going to be some growing pains there. They've got to get it together. They've got to buy into what Mike is preaching. And that's tough, especially when you had a system that you liked, you loved the coach that was there. He was a different style. They've got to get on board with this, and they've got to do it quick if they want to get back into contention.
Yeah, Mozzie Smith, Linval Joseph, those guys in the interior of that defense, they got to bow up. Odiki Zua, all those guys. And to me, I just look and, studying the tape, they just don't have the personnel. Mozzie Smith, he shows up when he's a young guy. He shows up when he wants to show up. Sometimes he'll play hard, sometimes he won't. Sometimes he takes plays off, sometimes he won't. You can't have good, steady defense when you have guys like that. So to me, it all starts with the personnel, and he's trying to get these guys playing, but these guys, they just don't play hard. You know, you look at Linval Joseph, he's an older guy. He's a big guy, so he plays really high, he's stiff, and instead of playing low when he was younger, he's just getting pushed around. They double team him, they push him back 4 or 5 yards. That's what's going on with the essence of their run game, trying to stop the run game. They have these fast linebackers, and these kids play hard. They go from sideline to sideline. But once those big guards and those big tackles get on top of them, they're done. So it really starts in an interior of that defense.
And the interesting thing, last year, they had this reputation of being great at home, not so good on the road. Well, at home, you had the crowd noise, you had the fast surface, your offense was putting points on the board early, so now people have to throw to catch up, and that played right into their hands. Well, this year, they have struggled at home because people are running the ball right at them. And I think what they have done is kind of put the scouting report out on themselves. If you pound us early and you get after us, we might not be the same defense. They've got to overcome that. They've got to show in the first quarter that they can stop these other teams from running the ball and then turn your pass rushers loose. So they've got to get an attitude adjustment, to me.
I just imagine if they hadn't won that game in Pittsburgh at the last second. If they hadn't had that last second touchdown in Pittsburgh, they'd be sitting at 2-4, coming off getting blown out at home, and 0-3 on their home field. I mean, that would be like disastrous. But that was a huge win in Pittsburgh just to keep the ship afloat a little bit.
It was, but now you're coming up on this game where this has kind of been the thorn in our side. We've gone to San Francisco a couple times. We haven't held up physically. 49ers have beaten us, and now we've had a bye week to kind of prepare and get ready. This should be the best that we're going to see of the Cowboys. They should be in desperation mode. You've got San Francisco the same way. They don't want to go to 3-5, so they're in desperation mode. Who's going to play their game? Who's going to be the dominant force? And we were out there last year, and those 49er, I was there a day ahead to interview Christian McCaffrey, and those 49er players told me, we're tougher than these guys. We're going to get after them, and they believe that. And that to me is going to determine the game.
Absolutely, Coach. Excellent point, because I heard the same thing. It was like, look, these guys got a lot of hype, but at the end of the day, I had players telling me, man, these dudes are soft. We're going to run the ball. We're going to play physical with them. We're going to push them around. That's the vision. That's what people look at the Dallas Cowboys. And now you have Kyle Shanahan. You know he's got a lot to prove. So 30 times at least minimum running the football against these guys.
I'm counting 5 teams, and we were week 5, 6, 7, 8, going through this part of the season that were desperate. We had the Bengals and the Giants. They were already desperate. We had the Jets. They're desperate. And now we're going to have the Cowboys and San Francisco, both scrapping and fighting for playoff positioning. And here we are in week number 8. That's why we love the NFL, isn't it? We'll see you guys at 7:00 in San Francisco for Football Night in America, 8:15 for Sunday Night Football. Anytime you get Dallas and San Francisco, the clash of
fireworks, baby.
Let the fireworks explode. Can't wait to see you guys, man. Great seeing you, Rod. Good luck with the volleyball playoffs. We got a winner today or what?
Thank you. We're going to win. We're going to win.
We're going to win.
Let's go.
FNIA podcast. See you guys next week. Later.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.